Evelyn Brooks has been staring at the same easement map for 11 minutes, and the coffee in her paper cup has gone cold enough that she can taste the cheap along with the bitter. The map is spread across her desk in 4 printed panels and pinned at the corners with a pen, a stapler, and a half-empty jar of antacids. It shows the Sterling House property and the 2 adjacent parcels that will determine whether the historic estate becomes a preserved landmark or a demolition casualty in a mixed-use development play. The hearing is tomorrow, 3 o'clock. City and County Building, Room 419, and the agenda item has drawn enough public comment that the clerk moved it to the larger chamber. Evelyn knows because she has been tracking the registration list, and the names on it split clean down the middle: preservationists, neighborhood council reps, and 2 state historic preservation officers on one side, and counsel for KSL development and a handful of union reps on the other, and Nathan Sterling, who is not technically on the agenda, who does not need to be on the agenda, who owns the trust documents that control the Sterling House and the financing package behind the development proposal, and Evelyn suspects the silence of at least 2 board members on the Salt Lake City Historic Landmark Commission. She pushes back from Stabile, the desk, and stands, rolling the tension out of her shoulders. From her office window on the 8th floor of the Wells Fargo building, she can see the winter light sliding off the Wasatch Range and turning the city into a study in white and shadow. A beautiful day to lose a case she cannot afford to lose. Her phone buzzes. A text from her paralegal. Asterisk. He's here. Asterisk. Evelyn does not need to ask which he. She pockets her phone, checks her reflection in the dark screen of her laptop, and decides she does not care what she looks like. She is not that woman anymore. She has not been that woman for 2 years. The knock comes before she can cross the room. She opens the door, and Nathan Sterling is leaning against the doorframe as if he has nowhere else to be. He is wearing a charcoal suit with a subtle herringbone weave, no tie, the kind of expensive nonchalance that comes from old money and older grudges. His eyes are the same dark amber they have always been, and they move over her face with a familiarity that makes her skin heat. Evelyn. Nathan, you're early. You said 4. It's 3:47. He checks an imaginary watch. Then I'm early. She steps back to let him in, telling herself it's professionalism and not the sudden need to put distance between them. He enters her office like he owns it, surveying the easement maps, the zoning packets stacked on the filing cabinet, the Bezerata, hearing transcripts from the November session paper-clipped to a legal pad of her notes. Sterling House, he asks. Though he already knows. Sterling House, she confirms. And before you say anything, I've reviewed the trust documents your lawyers sent over. The 2019 amendment to the Sterling Family Trust is clean. You have the authority to demolish. Nathan's jaw tightens, a micro-expression she would have missed 2 years ago. Then why are we fighting this? Because the Preservation Review Board has standing, and the Landmark Commission can override the trust's demolition clause if the property meets criteria C and D of the Municipal Preservation Code. You're reaching. I'm thorough. She moves to her desk and pulls a manila folder from the second drawer. The 2019 amendment was filed in Utah County, not Salt Lake. Your grandmother's trust was domiciled in Salt Lake. That creates a jurisdictional question about whether the amendment covers the property. Evelyn, I'm not finished. She opens the folder and slides a document across the desk. This is the heir rights valuation from 2021. Your father commissioned it. The numbers show that the heir rights above the Sterling House are worth more than the land itself, which means the development proposal undervalues the property and overstates the demolition necessity. Takes the document, scans it, and sets it down. His expression has not changed, but she can see the calculation behind his eyes. He is not angry. He is doing math. Where did you get this? Public record. It's not public record. It is now. I filed the motion to compel disclosure of all valuation documents related to the trust property. The court granted it last week. You filed the motion to compel without notifying my counsel. I notified your counsel. Your counsel is slow. He almost smiles. Almost. You're not making friends. I'm not trying to make friends. I'm trying to save the Sterling House. By burying me in paperwork. By forcing you to negotiate. The silence between them is a living thing. Nathan crosses to the window, hands in his pockets, and looks out at the city. The light catches the strong line of his profile, the salt-tan pepper at his temples. That wasn't there 2 years ago. The board wants the development, he says quietly. My uncle's faction has the votes. I don't have a choice here. You always have a choice, do I? He turns and there is something raw in his expression that she has not seen before. The last time we were on opposite sides of a hearing, you walked out. Because you lied to me. I didn't lie. Omission is a lie, Nathan. You let me believe the trust was neutral. You let me build a case around a preservation easement that you knew your family was going to challenge. And then you sat there in that hearing and watched your uncle's attorney dismantle my argument while you said nothing. I was trying to protect you. From what? From my family. Evelyn exhales slowly and turns away from him. The easement map flutters in the draft from the heating vent. She thinks about the first time they met at a community forum on the Sterling House, when he had been just a man in a crowd and she had been just a lawyer with a cause. She thinks about the dinner afterward, the wine, the way he had listened to her talk about adaptive reuse like it mattered. She thinks about the morning she found out who he was. The hearing is tomorrow, she says, because she does not know what else to say. I know, he is behind her now, close enough that she can feel the warmth of him, smell the cedar and bergamot, Veuve, his cologne. Evelyn, I came here to offer you something. I don't want anything from you. A compromise. She turns. He is closer than she expected. She can see the faint scar above his left eyebrow from the hiking accident, the one he got the weekend they went to Park City. Everything felt possible. What kind of compromise? A board resolution. I can get the votes to table the demolition if you agree to support the development on the adjacent parcels. The Sterling House stays, the development moves forward. Everyone wins. Everyone wins. She almost laughs. And the trust? The trust stays intact. My uncle gets his development. I get the house. You get your preservation. And what do you get? His eyes hold hers. I get to stop fighting you. The words hang in the air between them, heavy, with everything unsaid. Back puts the desk between them and reaches for the zoning packet she prepared this morning. I need it in writing, she says. Board resolution, trust amendment language, and a binding commitment to the preservation easement. I want the air rights valuation, independently audited, and I want a public statement from Sterling Heritage, acknowledging the historical significance of the property. You're asking for a lot. I'm asking for what's right. He watches her for a long moment, and then he nods. I'll have my office draft the documents tonight. Good. Evelyn. She looks up. I meant what I said. About protecting you. I know. She turns the page of the zoning packet, though she has no idea what she's looking at. That doesn't mean I forgive you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Then what are you asking for? Type hesitates, and for a moment she sees the man she fell in love with, the one who took her to see the Sterling House at sunset and told her about his grandmother's garden. Then the mask slides back into place, and he is Nathan Sterling again, CEO of Sterling Heritage Holdings, her opponent and her undoing. Tomorrow, he says, I'll see you tomorrow. He lets himself out. The door clicks shut behind him, and Evelyn stands alone in her office, listening to the hum of the city below. The easement map flutters. The coffee is cold, and somewhere in the stack of hearing transcripts, she finds the one from 2 years ago, the day everything fell apart. She does not open it. She already knows what it says. She does not open it. She already knows what it says. Instead, she pulls the transcript out and sets it on top of the stack, face down. She is not going to reread it. She is not going to stand here at 6 o'clock in the evening and replay the moment when Nathan's uncle's attorney stood up and used her own preservation memo as Exhibit A for why the Sterling House should be released from covenant. She is not going to think about the way Nathan sat there silent while his family dismantled 2 months of careful strategy in 40 minutes. She is going to go home. She is going to eat something that comes from a container. She is going to sleep, and tomorrow she is going to walk into room 419 and do her job. She pulls the door shut behind her and nods to her paralegal, Marco, who is packing up his bag. You got the hearing packets? He asks. 3 copies plus the backup easement overlays. Backup easement overlays that show the access corridor was moved. Evelyn pauses, bag strap half on her shoulder. What? Marco pulls his tablet out of his bag and scrolls to an email. I was going to tell you this afternoon, but then Nathan Sterling showed up, and you looked like you needed the room. He hands her the tablet. The original 2016 easement map shows a 12-foot access corridor along the north boundary. The 2021 revision narrows it to 6 feet and shifts it east. I had the county surveyor's office pull the filed version. Evelyn takes the tablet. The map on the screen is the original, and the access corridor is clearly wider than the one in the current filing. Who submitted the revision? That's the fun part. Sterling Heritage Holdings, authorized by their land use consultant. Marco pulls his bag onto his shoulder. The consultant being Nathan's sister Claire. Evelyn stares at the screen. Claire Sterling. The name has been a footnote in every document she has reviewed, the family member who does not sit on the board but who consults on every major land use decision. Evelyn has never met her. She has only seen the signature, a tight, efficient hand, non the easement revision, the valuation addendum, the memo that recommended demolition. Marco. Yeah, pull every document Claire Sterling has signed in the last 3 years. Everything, every map, every memo, every addendum. Already on it. He pauses at the door. You know what this means, right? If the easement was moved to make the development footprint work, the whole zoning package could fall apart. I know what it means. She takes the tablet back to her desk and sits down. I need you to pull the preservation bidder's original offer too. The one from the Rocky Mountain Heritage Trust. The one that got buried? The one Claire's memo says was below market value. I want to see the actual numbers. Marco nods and leaves. Evelyn sits alone in the empty office, the city darkening behind her, the tablet warm in her hands. She pulls up the easement overlay again and compares the two maps, old and new, and the shift is unmistakable. Someone moved the access corridor to give the adjacent development parcels a cleaner boundary. Someone filed the revision without flagging the change to the Preservation Review Board. Someone, she suspects, is Claire Sterling. The hearing room is full. Evelyn has never seen room 419 this crowded, and she has been practicing land use law in Salt Lake City for 9 years. The preservation side fills the left half of the gallery, and the development side fills the right, and the aisle between them feels like a line drawn in sand. She takes her seat at the petitioner's table and sets out her packets, her exhibits, her backup easement overlays. The fluorescent lights hum. The heating system rattles. Someone in the back row is wearing too much cologne. Nathan enters through the side door. He is wearing the same charcoal suit, but today there is a tie, knotted precisely, and his expression is the one she remembers from boardrooms. Controlled, careful, unreadable. Takes his seat at the respondent's table with his counsel, a woman named Harriet Long, who nods to Evelyn with professional courtesy. The hearing officer calls the room to order. Evelyn stands and presents first. She walks through the preservation criteria, the covenant history, the jurisdictional question about the trust amendment. She presents the heir rights valuation and argues that the development proposal undervalues the property. She is clear, she is organized, and she can feel the room leaning in. Then she presents the easement map. Miss Brooks, the hearing officer says, are you alleging that the access corridor was intentionally relocated? I am presenting evidence that the 2021 revision narrowed the access corridor from 12 feet to 6 feet and shifted it east by 14 feet. The revision was filed by Sterling Heritage Holdings and authorized by their land use consultant, Claire Sterling. She pauses. I am also presenting evidence that the narrower corridor directly benefits the proposed development on the adjacent parcels by expanding the buildable footprint. Harriet Long stands. Objection. The easement revision was a routine administrative update. Routine updates do not typically narrow access by 50%, Evelyn says, or shift the corridor to align with a development proposal that had not yet been publicly filed. The room murmurs. The hearing officer studies the maps and asks for copies. Evelyn provides them. She can see Nathan's face from across the room, and he is watching her with an expression she cannot read. The afternoon grinds on. Harriet Long presents the development case. And she is good. She argues that the Sterling house is not architecturally significant, that the preservation covenant is a burden on the trust, that the development will provide needed housing and union jobs. She argues that the heir rights valuation is speculative, and that the easement revision was filed in good faith. Evelyn does not interrupt. She waits for her rebuttal, and when it comes she stands and holds up the document Marco found last night. This is the original offer from the Rocky Mountain Heritage Trust, dated March 2022. The offer was to purchase the Sterling house at fair market value and place it in a perpetual preservation trust with an endowment for maintenance and a public access agreement. She looks at the hearing officer. The offer was rejected by Sterling Heritage Holdings in a memo authored by Claire Sterling, who stated that the offer was below market value. The memo is dated April 2022. She lets that land. The fair market value assessment attached to the memo was performed by a firm retained by Sterling Heritage. The independent valuation I submitted earlier shows the property, including air rights, is worth significantly more than the internal assessment indicated. The Heritage Trust offer was, in fact, above the internal valuation. Harriet Long stands, the internal valuation was performed by a reputable firm. Then why does it omit the air rights entirely? Silence. The hearing officer makes a note. Evelyn sits. Nathan has not spoken. He has been sitting at the respondent's table with his hands folded, his jaw tight, watching the proceedings with the focused stillness of a man who is hearing something he did not expect to hear. Evelyn cannot tell if he is angry or calculating or both. The hearing officer calls a recess before public comment, and the room empties into the hallway. Evelyn stands at the water fountain, and Nathan appears beside her. "The buried offer," he says quietly. "You found it. Your sister buried it. Not you. I didn't know. I believe you." She straightens and looks at him. "But that's the problem, Nathan. You didn't know. You're the CEO. You should have known." He does not argue. He stands there in the fluorescent hallway light, and she can see the weight of it on him. The family company and the family trust and the family sister, who has been making decisions in his name. "I need to see the documents," he says, "all of them, tonight. I'll have Marco send them." Evelyn. He catches her arm, gentle, careful. "I didn't know about the offer. I didn't know about the easement, but I should have." "You're right. Then, fix it." "How?" "Public correction file. An amended easement map with the original corridor. Disclose the Heritage Trust offer to the Preservation Board. And let the board vote on the real numbers, not the ones Claire manufactured." He looks at her for a long moment, and she can see the decision happening behind his eyes. She has seen him make decisions before, but never one that costs him this much. "If I do this," he says, "my uncle's faction will challenge my authority. Then get the votes. You told me you could table the demolition. Can you get the votes to override a bad easement filing? I can try. Try harder." He almost smiles at that. The ghost of the man she fell for, and then the hearing officer calls them back in. The public comment lasts 2 hours. Evelyn sits through every minute of it, listening to neighbors and historians and union reps and a woman who played in the Sterling House garden as a child. She listens to Nathan's uncle's attorney argue that the trust is sacred and the development is necessary, and the preservationists are standing in the way of progress. She listens, and she takes notes, and she does not look at Nathan. The hearing officer closes the record and schedules the decision for the following week. The room empties. Nathan lingers, and she can see him talking to his counsel in low tones, and she can see the moment he makes up his mind. He crosses the room to where she is packing her briefcase. "I'm filing the amended easement map tomorrow," he says, "and I'm disclosing the Heritage Trust offer to the board. I'm also requesting an independent review of the air rights valuation." "Good. I'm also doing something else." He hesitates, and she can see the CEO mask slip. "I'm stepping back from the zoning package, going to recommend that the board appoint an independent land use strategist to oversee the development proposal. Someone with no ties to Sterling Heritage." Evelyn stops packing and looks at him. "You're giving up control of the deal." "I'm giving up control of a deal that was built on bad information. The company needs to be honest about what happened, and that starts with me." She studies his face, the honesty there, the cost of it. "You know this could weaken your position with the board." "I know. And your uncle." "I know that too." "Nathan," she picks up her briefcase. "Why now?" He looks at her, and the answer is in his eyes before he says it. "Because 2 years ago I let my family use you, and I have not been able to live with it since." The hallway is empty. The hearing room door is closed. Somewhere down the corridor, a janitor's cart rattles. "I need to think," she says. "Take all the time you need." "No, Nathan." She looks at him. "I need to think about whether I can trust you. That is different from taking time." He nods. "I'll be at the office if you need anything." She watches him walk away, and she does not call after him. She goes home. She eats cold noodles from a container and sits on her couch with the easement map spread around her, and she thinks about trust and preservation and the way Nathan Sterling looked. When he said he could not live with it, she sleeps. She wakes. She makes a decision. The board meeting is Friday. Nathan stands at the head of the conference table and presents the amended easement map, the heritage trust offer, and the independent valuation request. His uncle's faction objects. Claire, sitting at the far end of the table, says nothing, her face pale and tight. Nathan does not fire her. He does something harder. He asks the board to authorize an independent review of every land use filing Claire has signed in the last 5 years. The vote passes by 3. Claire leaves the room without speaking. Evelyn is waiting in the lobby when Nathan comes out. He stops when he sees her, and she can see the exhaustion in his shoulders, the weight of what he has just done. The independent land use strategist, she says. Have you chosen someone? Not yet. Good, because I have a condition. Name it. I will consult on the zoning package. Independent review only. I will not be retained by Sterling Heritage, and I will not be paid by Sterling Heritage. I will bill the city, and the city will bill you. And if at any point I find evidence of further manipulation, I walk, and I take the evidence to the preservation board. Done. And Nathan. She looks at him. This is not a relationship. This is a job. I know. I mean it. I know that too. But he is looking at her the way he looked at her in Park City, and she is not sure either of them believes it. 3 weeks later, the Preservation Board votes to place the Sterling House in a perpetual trust. The Heritage Trust offer is accepted at fair market value, including air rights. The adjacent development proceeds under the original easement corridor, with a smaller footprint and a public access agreement that preserves the North Garden. Nathan signs the trust documents himself, in a conference room with windows that overlook the house, and Evelyn watches from across the table and thinks about gardens and sunset light, bond, and begin. Afterward, he walks her to her car in the parking garage. The air is cold, and their breath fogs. The board approved the independent review, he says. Claire is cooperating good, and the zoning package passed, with your amendments. Good. Evelyn. She turns, he is standing with his hands in his pockets, the wind pulling at his coat, and he looks like a man who has done the hardest thing he will ever do and is not sure it was enough. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he says. I'm asking if I can take you to dinner. Not as a client, not as a CEO, just as the man who should have stood up 2 years ago and didn't. She looks at him. She thinks about the easement map and the buried offer, and the way he stood in front of his board and asked for an independent review of his own sister. She thinks about the Sterling House, standing in its garden preserved. Tomorrow, she says, 7 o'clock, and Nathan. Yeah, picks somewhere with good wine. He laughs, and it is the first honest sound she has heard from him in 2 years. She gets in her car and drives home, and she does not look in the rearview mirror, because she already knows he is watching her go. She parks. She goes upstairs. She sets her bag down and looks out the window at the city lights and the mountains beyond. Tomorrow, she thinks. Tomorrow is a start, and this time it is a foundation no one can build on but them. She picks the restaurant. She texts him the address at 4:50, 10 minutes after she gets home from the office, and he responds in 11 seconds with a single thumbs-up emoji, which is so unlike the Nathan Sterling she remembers that she stares at her phone for a full beat before putting it down. The restaurant is a small Italian place, on 9th East, family-owned, with a wine list that is ambitious for its square footage, and a polenta that could make a grown woman weep. Evelyn has been coming here since she passed the bar. It is not a date restaurant. It is a Colique Tuesday restaurant, a bad day restaurant, a place where the owners know your name and do not care who you are, outside the door. She arrives at 6:58. He is already seated at a corner table with a glass of Barolo and a look on his face like he has been running cost-benefit analyses in his head since 4:50. When he sees her, he stands, and the gesture is so old-fashioned and unrehearsed that it makes something in her chest tighten. You're early, he says. I'm not late. I brought the review schedule. He nods at a folder on the table, and she sees that it is the independent review timeline for Claire's filings. I know you said this isn't a meeting, but I thought you might want to see it. She sits down and pulls the folder toward her. Inside is a clean, itemized schedule. Phase 1 covers easement revisions and valuation addenda. Phase 2 covers trust amendments and board resolutions. Phase 3 covers any third-party contracts that may have been affected. The timeline is aggressive but realistic. The outside counsel listed on the cover page is a firm Evelyn knows by reputation, one with no ties to Sterling Heritage or any of its subsidiaries. This is good, she says, because it is. The board wanted to use internal counsel. I insisted on independent. Good. And I asked them to report directly to the city's legal department, not to me. She looks up from the folder. That's more than I asked for. You asked me to try harder. He picks up his wine glass and sets it down without drinking. I'm trying. The waiter comes. They order polenta for her, risotto for him, a bottle of the Barolo to split, and then they are alone again with the noise of the restaurant around them and the folder between them like a chaperone. Tell me about the review, she says. Not the schedule, what you expect to find. Nathan leans back in his chair. I expect to find that Claire has been managing the family's land use filings for years, and that some of them are not what they should be. I expect to find that the heir rights omission was deliberate. I expect to find that the Heritage Trust offer was suppressed because it would have interfered with the development plan she and my uncle built together. And then what? Then the board decides what to do about it. I don't have the authority to remove a family member from their position unilaterally. The trust requires a 2/3 vote, but you're willing to push for it. I'm willing to do whatever the process requires. The food arrives, eats slowly, watching him across the table, and she thinks about how strange it is to sit here with this man and eat polenta and talk about easements as if they are two people who have not been circling each other for 3 years. She thinks about the last time they ate together at a restaurant nothing like this one, a place with white tablecloths and a sommelier who knew Nathan by name. She had been so careful that night, so aware of the line between professional and personal, and she had crossed it anyway. The garden, she says, and then stops. What about it? My grandmother's garden. She had roses, tea roses, the old-fashioned kind, the ones that smell like pepper and rain. He's looking at her like she has handed him something. I used to think the house was just the house, the building, the structure, but it was never about the structure. It was about the garden. It was about what the house meant when she was in it. Nathan, I'm not trying to make this about sentiment. I'm telling you because you should know. When you make the public statement about the trust, you should talk about the garden. Not the architecture, not the preservation criteria. The garden. He nods slowly. I will. Good. They finish dinner. He pays without asking, which she allows because she is tired and because the wine is warm in her blood and because she does not want to fight about a check. They walk outside, and the air is sharp, the kind of cold that makes the city feel clean and new. Evelyn. She turns. He is standing on the sidewalk, with his hands in his coat pockets, and the streetlight catches the silver at his temples. I'm not going to ask you anything, tonight, he says. I just want you to know that I am going to do this right. Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, I am not going to rush you, and I am not going to hide behind the company, and I am not going to let anyone in my family make decisions for me again. That's a lot of knots. I'm bursting, serious. I know you are. She takes a breath. I need you to understand something, Nathan. I spent 2 years thinking I was wrong about you. Not just wrong about the relationship, but wrong about the work, wrong about the easement, wrong about the valuation. I thought I had missed something, and I am someone who does not miss things. And it turns out I was not wrong. The data was wrong. You understand the difference? I do. Good. Because if this is going to work any of it, I need to know that you see me, not as a strategy, not as a preservation advocate, as a lawyer who was right and was made to feel wrong. I see you. The drive home is quiet. She lets him follow her car into the parking garage, and she lets him walk her to the elevator, and she lets him lean in and press his mouth to her forehead. Once, gentle, restrained. She lets him. Back tomorrow, he says. Tomorrow is Saturday. Then Monday. Monday, she agrees, and the doors close between them. She goes upstairs and stands at her window and watches the city lights in the mountains and the dark shape of the valley, and she thinks about foundations. About how a foundation is not a thing you build once. It is a thing you inspect and repair and reinforce. It is a thing that holds only if you are honest about what it can carry. She sleeps. She wakes. She calls Marco. I need you to pull the 2018 board minutes, she says, where Claire's consulting contract was approved, and get me the original preservation covenant from 1994. I want to see if the garden is mentioned. The garden? The garden. She hangs up. She makes coffee. She sits at her kitchen table with her laptop open and her notes spread around her. And she works, because the work is what she does and who she is. And this time, no one is going to make her feel wrong for it. 3 months later, the independent review concludes. Claire cooperates fully, and the findings are exactly what Nathan expected. Easement revision was deliberate, the heir rights omission was strategic, and the Heritage Trust offer was suppressed to protect the development plan. The board votes to restructure the land use consulting function and appoints an independent compliance officer. Claire steps down. She does not go quietly, but she goes. Nathan calls Evelyn on a Tuesday. The public statement is drafted. I talked about the garden. Good, and I mentioned the preservation covenant, and the public access agreement, and the perpetual trust. Nathan, I also said that Sterling Heritage Holdings is committed to honest public process, and that the company regrets any actions that may have undermined the integrity of the land use review. Was that so hard? The hardest thing I've ever written, she smiles. She is smiling when she hangs up, and she is smiling when she drives to the Sterling house that afternoon and walks through the garden with the Heritage Trust site manager. The roses are gone, but the trust has planted new ones. Tea roses. The old-fashioned kind, the ones that smell like pep and rain. She calls Nathan from the garden. It's beautiful, she says. Come to dinner. I came to dinner. You paid. Come to dinner again. She laughs, and it surprises her, the sound of it. How long it has been since she has heard herself laugh like this. Friday, she says. 7 o'clock, and Nathan? Yeah, pick somewhere with good wine. She hangs up. She stands in the garden. The sun is going down behind the Wasatch, and the light is gold and long, and the house behind her is solid and sure. She thinks about foundations. She thinks about gardens. She thinks about the Quan man who gave up control of a deal to do the right thing, and the woman who helped him do it. And this time, she thinks, this time it is a foundation no one can build on but them. The Friday dinner becomes a Saturday morning coffee, which becomes a Tuesday lunch, which becomes a pattern so steady and quiet that Evelyn realizes one afternoon she has stopped keeping count. Not of the days, of the distance between them. It narrows in increments. She can measure in the way he listens when she talks about easement law, and the way she stops checking her phone when he texts her something trivial about the weather, or a book he is reading, or a question about zoning setbacks that he already knows the answer to. He is asking because he wants to talk to her. She knows this. She has known this since the second coffee, when he sat across from her in a cafe on Main Street and asked her what she thought about density bonuses, and she talked for 10 minutes about inclusionary zoning before she realized he was smiling at her like she was the best thing he had seen all week. She likes him. She still likes him. That is the part that frightens her. 6 weeks after the public statement, Evelyn is in her office when Marco knocks on the door frame. He is carrying a manila folder and the expression he reserves for news that is either very good or very bad. The city's audit of the zoning package came back. He says, clean, every filing, every permit, every easement, the amended corridor is recorded, the development footprint is revised. The Heritage Trust has filed their annual stewardship report, and the compliance officer signed off on the full package. No exceptions, no findings, no remediation required. Evelyn leans back in her chair. That's done then. That's done. Marco sets the folder on her desk. There's one more thing. The City Council is considering a resolution to name the Sterling House Garden as a protected cultural landscape under the Municipal Heritage Code. Separate from the house, permanent. Who proposed it? The district councilwoman. She said a constituent brought it to her attention. Which constituent? Marco shrugs, but there is a knowing look in his eye. Don't know, but the constituent apparently provided a detailed history of the garden's significance to the neighborhood, including testimony from longtime residents and a botanical survey of the heritage rose varieties planted there. Evelyn picks up the folder. Inside is a copy of the proposed resolution, and attached to it is a letter on Sterling Heritage Holdings letterhead, signed by Nathan, supporting the designation and waiving any objection the company might have to the additional layer of protection. She reads the letter twice. The language is careful and precise. It references the preservation covenant, the perpetual trust, and the public access agreement. It does not mention Evelyn by name, but it credits the independent land use review that brought the garden's significance to the company's attention. She knows what this cost him, not in money or in board votes, but in the kind of capital that is harder to spend. The willingness to invite more regulation on your own property because it is the right thing to do. Tell the councilwoman's office I'll provide a letter of support, she tells Marco. Already drafted. She looks up at him. You drafted a letter of support before I asked. I've been working for you for 4 years. I know how this goes. He leaves. Evelyn reads the resolution one more time and then calls Nathan. He picks up on the second ring. You could have told me, she says. You read the proposal. I read the proposal. I also read your letter. The one where you supported additional regulation on a property your company still holds an interest in. The garden is worth more than the interest. Nathan, I mean it. The garden is the point. You told me that. You said the house was never about the structure. It was about what it meant when she was in it. I went home that night, and I thought about my grandmother, and I thought about how she used to cut roses for the neighbors. Did I tell you that? No. She cut roses for the neighbors every week from May to October. She'd put them in mason jars and leave them on porches. No note, no name, just roses. When she died, people came to the funeral who I had never met, and every one of them had a story about the roses. Evelyn closes her eyes. The phone is warm against her ear. The office is quiet around her. I want to see it, she says. The garden, can we go? Now, now. She drives. He meets her there, in the parking lot beside the house, still in his suit from the office. The garden is dormant now, the rose, canes bare, the mulch fresh. The Heritage Trust has installed a low iron fence around the perimeter and a stone path that winds through the beds. A plaque near the entrance reads, The Sterling House Garden, established 1962, protected in perpetuity. They walk the path in silence. The evening is cool, but not cold, and the light is doing that thing it does in Salt Lake City. In the transition between seasons, when the air is clear enough to see the individual trees on the foothills and the sky goes from blue to gold to something that does not have a name. I want to say something, Nathan says, stopping at the center of the garden where the path forms a small circle around an old stone bench. Say it. I am in love with you. I have been in love with you since the community forum, and I was in love with you when I sat in that hearing and said nothing, and I have been in love with you every day since. I did not say it before, because I did not think I had the right. I had not earned it. I had not done the work. Evelyn looks at him. The stone bench, the bare roses, the plaque, the house behind them, solid and preserved and sure. You have done the work. She says, I know. I'm not asking you to love me back because of it. I'm asking you to let me keep doing it, with you beside you, however you want it. She steps forward. She puts her hands on his chest over the place where his heart is beating, fast and steady, and she feels the fabric of his suit under her palms and the warmth of him through it. I love you, she says. I have loved you since Park City, and I am terrified of it, and I am going to do it anyway because I am not going to let fear or your family or a bad hearing transcript keep me from the thing I want. He covers her hands with his. What do you want? This, you, the garden, the work. All of it. He kisses her then, in the garden, in the last light, and it is gentle and slow and sure, the kind of kiss that is a beginning, not an ending. She can feel the shape of the future in it, not as a certainty but as a possibility, a foundation laid in honesty and inspected in daylight and built to carry weight. They stand there until the light fades and the stars come out over the Wasatch, drives home. And he follows, and they stand in her kitchen and drink tea and talk about the council resolution and the compliance report and the roses that will bloom in May. In the morning, she wakes early and finds him in her kitchen, reading the zoning package she left on the counter. He has made coffee. He has made toast. He is wearing his shirt from yesterday and a pair of her sweatpants that are too short for him, and he looks rumpled and human and like someone she could build a life around. Good morning, she says. Good morning. He looks up from the packet. Did you know the inclusionary zoning requirement in the new ordinance has a density bonus for projects that preserve existing cultural landscapes? I did know that. It's a good provision. It is. I'm impressed. Stop being impressed and pass the butter. He laughs. The sound fills the kitchen. She sits down across from him and eats her toast and drinks her coffee, and the morning light comes through the window and lands on the table between them, and it is ordinary, and it is enough, and it is everything. The council passes the resolution unanimously. The Sterling House Garden is protected in perpetuity. separate from the house, separate from the trust, a thing unto itself. The Heritage Trust plants new roses in the spring, tea roses, the old-fashioned kind, and Evelyn goes to see them on a Saturday in June when they are just beginning to open. Nathan is beside her. His hand is in hers. The sun is warm and the roses smell like pepper and rain. "Tell me about the roses," he says. She tells him. She tells him everything.